That's been a familiar place for me too. And I think it's just so common, in a society that rewards going, doing, striving, achieving. Basically, we're surviving our lives
Mm.
moment to moment versus actually like living and thriving.
Welcome to Honest Feedback, the podcast where deep truth meets bold transformation. I'm Goddess Brittany King, a pleasure priestess and a transformational retreat facilitator who helps women connect to their deepest truths, reclaim their pleasure, and awaken their inner power.
And I'm Lisette King, an emotional ninja and transformational coach who helps leaders release baggage, heal unresolved trauma, and step into their most aligned, purposeful lives.
We've created this podcast for spirit-led individuals just like you.
Seekers of truth, personal growth, and meaningful connection. Whether you're navigating life's big questions, craving more joy and fulfillment, or simply looking for honest, relatable conversations, you're in the right place.
Through personal stories, actionable advice, and transformative insights, our ultimate goal is to empower you to create a life that's overflowing with pleasure, purpose, and authenticity.
We know you're capable of incredible things, so let's make it happen together. All right. Welcome back to Honest Feedback Podcast. We've got a really delicious, juicy episode for you here today, and we're talking about nervous system regulation.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you got to say about that?
I mean, it's all the rage. How do you regulate your nervous system?
Yeah.
And it can be a lot, especially when you're like living life. We're in America. There's a lot of hustling. There's a lot of achieving. Yeah, there's a lot of achieving. And so what if you wake up and you're just like, I don't know if this is me.
Yeah.
What do I do? How do I live? How do I exist through this?
Yeah. You know, there was a funny meme going around that's like, am I depressed or am I just living in America in 2025? You know?
Oh, shots fired. We're in America, so they're actually shots fired.
Yes. And I will refrain from the other joke that I have.
Oh,
yeah, because well, I'm really excited because this person is incredible. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Megan?
Yes. Well, Megan is an awesome human. We got to hang out and I got to talk to her about her life and her story and meet her incredible dog. And so I was like, you have to be on the podcast because we have a question for you. So Megan Moseley is the founder of Bodywise Consulting and the creator of the art and science of being me. She synthesizes over 35 years of experience as a physical therapist with deep training in somatic psychology, and she holds certificates in nervous system resiliency and trauma release exercise and body coaching. She is a stand-up human being and just a wealth of knowledge. And I am so grateful that we get to have her on the podcast this week.
Yeah, definitely. And with that said, let's give Megan a call.
All right, let's call her. Hi, Megan. We're so happy to have you.
Hey, Brittany. Hey, Lisette. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, what an honor to have you here in the space, in the virtual studio. In the virtual studio. Well, we just shared with everyone your bio, but in your own words, like, how do you serve? How do you help people?
I call myself a body-mind integrated therapist. And so I love to work with people in coaching and consulting and doing some speaking work around helping them come into authentic alignment with the core truth of who they are. And my work is around integrating physical therapy with somatic psychology and somatic techniques to do nervous system resiliency. And I'm trained in trauma release exercise. And we can talk more about that in a minute, but that's super cool.
Yes.
And so I put all of this together in a way that I've created a framework called the art and science of being me. And I help people cultivate beingness, like that state of being safe in themselves and present and engaged, and really understanding from a nervous system perspective that is where we function, where we feel fulfilled, where we are in flow state and can focus, and where we feel free to be our authentic selves. And so that's, I think, where life, leadership, connection, relationship, everything needs to come from that place of driving our lives in that gear one nervous system of beingness. So that's what I help people find.
Ah, Amazing. It's in our title too, human beings. Oh, that's incredible. So what led you to this space? So this beautiful integration of all of these different titles.
I feel really grateful that my kind of arrival at this point in my life has come through just a really beautiful parallel of my own personal interests and my own personal evolution with my career. And, I started out, my background is, I'll date myself, like 35 years as a physical therapist and specializing in meticulous alignment and really feeling like I'm really dealing with the whole being here. I'm really like, that was my goal, bottom of the foot to top of the head. And when I turned 40, I was just at this place where, I'd done all the things. I had checked all the boxes. I did well in school. I had the career. I had my own business. I had all of this stuff. And I just wasn't like feeling the yummies. And part of that was I had been in a relationship for a long time. I was married, and it was just this very clear to me. It was like, I need to leave this relationship. I need to really like take the time to lean into understanding myself. And like, why did I make compromises in my life? Why did I stay in relationship that didn't work? Why was I, because from the outside it was successful, but there were some things that were really kind of lacking in a way of come to find out truly being myself, right? And so I sought after a therapist, and I swear, like total luck. Like this is like
Luck or the universe.
right? So classic form, like I rode a motorcycle at the time. So I get over there without like a fucking second to spare before my consultation and walk in, and she's this very kind of quiet, demure woman. And I'm like, in 5 minutes or less, here's my life. What are we going to do about it? And, and she was like, let me introduce you to this process I do, this kind of embodied mindfulness work. And I mean, it just landed so solidly that day. Like I was in tears. I was like, there's something to this. There's a lot I need to learn. And so I got to work with her for, like I think it was a year and a half of working with her. And throughout that time, just integrating this intuitively, right, in my own work. And then she led me to training in somatic psychology, including like Hakomi and internal family systems, and another one called recreation of self. And another kind of universal gift of another breakup that put me on an airplane next to someone who said, hey, David Berceli's coming to Portland. And I'm like, I don't know who that is. They're like, oh, I think you'd like this course. So then I trip into taking trauma release exercise. Like I landed there and I was like, this is the most spectacular, poignant, powerful continuing ed I have ever done. Right.
Wow.
So that was beautiful to like start to have that to work into, what I was already doing physically with people.
Yeah.
And then from there, I went on to kind of study what I would call the underpinning of that is nervous system resiliency, which is where I start with people, like giving them a really solid understanding and framework and roadmap of like, this is my experience of being me from this place of, what gear is my nervous system in? And so that's just putting all of those things together is kind of how I created this framework. And so now I get to work with people in this way that I have them stand, I look at what I call their alignment, and I coach them into this process of authentic alignment, and then notice like what comes up in that, what stories, what emotions, and then work with people to be able to navigate their nervous systems with some different techniques. And then I work in the trauma field. So doing the trauma release exercise. So it feels like a really beautiful journey to have like kind of just followed along and landed here.
Yeah. I mean, you've been trusting your intuition and being in the right place at the right time and seeing the signs and following your way through. So I'm so excited to have you here and your rich wealth of knowledge. I was like, yes, she will be able to help us shine some light and answer this for our caller, our texter, exhausted hustler. Okay, are we ready to answer a question?
Let's do it.
Okay. Hi, honest feedback. I've spent most of my life being the capable one, the one who handles things, gets it done, keeps everything moving. Eldest daughter here with all the programs running. Doing has always felt like safety, like control. But lately, I've been waking up inside this life I built and realizing I don't actually feel connected to any of it. I don't feel happy in my relationship with my family, in the fancy job. I've checked all the boxes, the accomplishments, the success, and I still feel numb. I keep performing a version of myself that looks good on paper, but inside I feel like a ghost. Even when I'm alone, I can't turn it off. Rest feels threatening. Stillness makes me anxious. And if I'm being honest, I'm scared I don't know how to just be. I don't even know who I am without all the doing, especially when I'm surrounded by a life that still rewards the hustle. Signed, Exhausted Hustler.
I feel that.
Yes.
Familiar. I mean, is that familiar to you guys as a place you've been in your lives?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an eldest daughter, so one, and like there's certain things, spent a lot of my life wearing a mask and performing, and it is exhausting. And my experience was just being afraid of like, if I let these plates stop spinning, then what?
Yeah, and I can relate from the place of like the stillness of not doing has felt uncomfortable. We recently went on a cruise for a friend's wedding, and Brittany's like, "Can you just stop learning? Like, can you just promise not to learn anything this week?" And I was like, "Okay, I'll try."
I'm like, do nothing, look pretty. She loves growth and all the seminars, and I'm just like, sometimes, what if we did nothing?
And it's like, no. It makes me uncomfortable. No, I'm just kidding. Go on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like that's been a familiar place for me too. And I think it's just so common, in a society that rewards going, doing, striving, achieving. Basically, we're surviving our lives moment to moment versus actually like living and thriving. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, it's when we think about the experience of rest feeling threatening, I just want to speak to that from a nervous system perspective. So the way that I classify it is that how we feel in any moment, in any realm, body, emotion, mental, and essence. That's what it means to be me. So these four realms of our beingness. How we feel in any of those at any moment is 100% dependent on the gear of our nervous system that we're driving our life in. And gear one is that gear of beingness and of living and of thriving, where I said, we flourish and we're in flow and we can focus and we're free to be ourselves. Gear two is that, we've all heard of it, fight, flight, or fawn. And then that gear three is where we're in freeze or fold. And that's kind of what she's describing, is that little ride between gear two and gear three, where it's like you try to come into rest and there's a little bit more quiet, but then it leaves room for things to come up. So it can feel threatening and anxiety producing. And I just want to name that when we feel that kind of anxiety and that kind of threatening thing happen when we're slowing down or doing something like breath work or whatever, that your nervous system is a ladder. And so that if you are moving from this place of feeling like numb inside and you slow down and you start to feel stress or anxiety or threat, that's actually more aliveness. Movement toward the gear one, where it's like we're moving toward the living and thriving, but we're moving out of this kind of checked out numb. And so it can feel very threatening, hard. People are like, the anxiety is scarier than the numbness in a way, and people can be comfortably numb, right? But that just kind of knowing that, I think sometimes is helpful for people that kind of rise in an awareness of threat level, that kind of hypervigilance is more alive and it is toward actually living and being.
That is super helpful to know as someone who spent a lot of time in a space of numbing. And, just sometimes we hear like, oh, the way to the other side is through, but you're like, oh, if it's anxiety, I must be going the wrong way. You know what I mean? You get fearful. You're like, well, this doesn't seem good. So I must have done it wrong. I gotta go back this way, back through numb, try a different door. And so it's just really helpful to know that like, that's actually moving closer to more aliveness like energetically. That does feel more energizing if you're in fight, like we're moving, as opposed to freeze, we're still. So, to get to that space on the other side.
Yeah. It's that I think that can be really helpful for people. And just having that framework that offers this compassionate understanding of like, oh, I'm actually not an anxious person. I'm anxious because of something that happened to me, right? I'm having an anxious experience at the moment because my nervous system is stuck in this gear. And so kind of understanding that there is options to get out of that. There are ways that we can, like in the somatic work that I do, contact yourself, move, to be able to downshift, have perspective, to be able to make different choices and change, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how does one start? So, like right now, she's basically saying, I'm numb. I'm in a life that I don't feel connected to. Like, where does she begin?
Yeah. So this is fun. Do you guys want to just play with something?
Yeah, let's play with some things.
Let's do some things. Let's teach the
Right.
audience some things.
Okay. So we'll start off with the one that's called a butterfly hug. And this is, just one of many. And as I offer it, it's, lots of options. Don't do anything that feels uncomfortable in any way, but I'll invite you to take your hands, put them palm towards you, hook your thumbs, and they're going to just land on your chest. Yeah. And just notice right away, this feels connecting. I like this. Both of you close your eyes right away. And just play with like the pressure of that. Like what's just exactly the right amount of pressure. Yeah. And I'm already noticing some deeper breaths just happening with you. And if this is a butterfly, its wings might lift and lower. So just lifting one hand away like a wing and then setting it back down. And then the other hand. And some people really like this. Some people don't like it at all. They'd rather just stay connected. So notice what's right for you. Notice if there's any way that you feel like she told me to do this, so I should. Right? So allow yourself the choice. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, just like that little petting that you did, Lisette. Like, yeah, follow your instincts. This is an opportunity to be with yourself. Yeah, just we're watching out for those signs of settling. So in the body realm, it might feel like a spontaneous deeper breath. Yeah, just that kind of like drop of the head that happened there and the relaxation, the little smile. Could be a tummy gurgle. Lots of extra credits for yawns, always. Yeah. And so just bookmark whatever that was in the body that was more of a shift toward gear one. And then in an emotional realm, let's plant that. So, oh, I noticed this thing in my body. I'm feeling a little bit different, a little bit better. Emotionally, what happens? Maybe it feels brighter, lighter, expansive. Doesn't have to be an actual emotion. Yeah, feel yourself nod your head, the yes, the rightness of this, yes. And then in the mental realm, we're just watching for, just could be the slightest bit slower, a little less judgy, a little less worried. And then finally in that essence realm, our essence is our beingness, our uniqueness, our me-ness, my spirit, my soul, whatever you want to call it. And we want to ramp up the connection in the essence of feeling loving, spacious, attuned, attached, connected to ourselves. And so just naming that, it's like, yeah, I'm here. I'm here for me. And so I'll just let you both kind of organically unwind out of that, and then we can just in on.
Yeah. How do you feel?
That was just absolutely lovely. I forgot we were shooting a podcast, honestly. The energy of the day of moving in and out, weaving in and out of activities, just like absolute stillness in my mind. I found myself more present, emotionally just calm, I guess is what I would describe it as. And yeah, there was a presence, the most present I've been all day.
Right. Yeah. And what about you?
Yeah, I just noticed like a gentleness and the slowing of the breath. And just energetically, it felt like lighter, freer, calmer
Yeah.
thoughts, you know, like everything was just more tranquil, more presence.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. And so that's just one of many, many tools. And in this practice, I say that it's not about doing something. This is about being with yourself. And I created these things called Be Me breaks. And so there's a lot of science around embodied micro practices and just these ways in which we give ourselves more than just a pause. It's like, oh, I'm taking a break. No, it's like really intentional, right? And doing it for like 2 minutes, 3 to 5 times a day creates these moments where we cultivate this beingness, where we check in and we really like plant that experience in ourselves by doing the Be Me check-in. And these little kind of, I call them these little moments or these bubbles of beingness that we visit 3 to 5 times a day, just like stress, they start to kind of like stick in us and they build up. And over time, not very long actually, we start to recognize, oh, this is who I am, not just someplace I visit. And it starts to kind of build resiliency and create this downshift in the nervous system that it's like, this is where I'm living more of the time now. So when I get to the place of feeling anxious or checked out or disconnected, that's more on my awareness because it's different than just oh, this is just like the kind of stuckness that I'm in.
Yeah, my curiosity is like, I love the stillness. I love the moments. I'm definitely a meditator, and something that I can relate to with this, with the person who asked the question, is this like the hustle culture, right? The like we're not rewarded for the moments of stillness, we're rewarded for the dollars that make my money thermometer move, and things of that nature. So how would you help someone separate from that identity?
I think that kind of goes into like why we even get geared up in the first place, right? So as beings, it makes sense that we thrive in this year one nervous system state of beingness. That's really who I believe we all are on the inside. That anxiety and depression and disconnection comes from when we're living in a way that is not connected with our own truth. And our nervous system is developed mostly in our first 0 to 7 years. And our needs at that time are for primarily safety, attachment, attunement, autonomy. And if those needs are not met, or there's some kind of violation of what I would call the universal imperatives, and I'll list those out for you in a minute. But when we are not in sync with these things, way before we even have language, our nervous system is like, oh, it's not safe to be me. Like I can't cry. I better be quiet. Or I have to be perfect to get attention, or I have to know all the right things, or whatever our story is, right? And it's like it was my story, right? Where it's like I have to go to school, get the good grades, get out, do the job, meet the person, and it's like I'm following in the doing and not feeling safe to listen to the friction of what's inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where it kind of weaves into that sense of that awareness of like, of ferrying out these parts of ourselves, right? In an internal family systems kind of language.
Mm-hmm.
What part of me feels unsafe to slow down, right? I've been ingrained in these messages of doing and producing and making money. And that's supposedly what creates safety,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
But really, when we work ourselves, like when we come back home into ourselves, that year one is all about safety. And the number one part of being safe is not running from tigers like we hear, right? It's like that's not happening in most people's lives,
Yeah.
but safety and freedom to be our authentic selves.
Yeah.
And these practices, and kind of beyond what I just showed you, and we could practice, actually, I'd love to show you another one in a minute that's a little bit deeper. But these practices are about, I am valuing myself for being. I am coming home to myself. I am paying attention, not to just myself in the moment, but what I call the through line of our life.
Yeah.
Nervous system is our through line. When we're feeling that discomfort, that unsafety, it's like, who is uncomfortable? Right? And developing this relationship with like, I learned that when I was 5.
Yeah.
Right. And there's ways in which I work with people to develop these relationships with their past selves. So you become what I call the superhero of your own life, right?
Yeah.
Yourself. You're creating different experiences. Be like, watch this. I'm gonna calm myself down just a little bit. I'm gonna actually say no to this thing that I really don't want to go to, but I should go to, right? Because, and then it's like you have this little kind of agreement with this younger part of yourself. It's like, okay, I'm going to say no. Let's see how this goes. Just let me, I'm going to, right. And then you kind of plant that experience of like, we're going to stay home tonight. Look at that. Like just checking in again, body, emotion, mental essence. Like this is different.
Yeah.
Right. And so that awareness brings choice and it brings the opportunity to connect. And so this is, I just want to, name that it's a much bigger rewrite than go to yoga, do EMDR, do
Right. Yes.
butterfly even, right? It's like you are really creating opportunities to be with yourself, for yourself, connected to yourself, and building that safety that maybe you never had growing up.
Well,
Go. Yeah.
yeah. So I would love, because I've heard a lot about internal family systems. And would you share with the audience, someone who may not have ever heard of this, just a little overview of what that is and what that means?
Yeah, so internal family systems is it's part of what's called it's a somatic framework. So it's based on the belief that our nervous system, it lives in our body, and it's our sense of safety, and it's what tracks all of our experiences. And so internal family system is it's parts work, where it is a way in which we, from in their language, call this like my self energy, my core, true, aligned self that really has this, maybe there are these sparkly moments of like, that's who I am. That's what's right for me. This is true. Like that's the self, right? And then noticing that when we get triggered in certain ways, or we find ourselves living our lives in ways that we're like, it doesn't feel right. We begin to know these other parts of ourselves, the beliefs that they hold, how they show up at times. And it's through this way of developing relationship, and in times actually rescuing, right? There might be this way in which, like when I work with people, I work with them in, I combine these things. So I do trauma release exercise. So people are literally like tremoring on the ground in this like release reflex. And then that brings up, similar to psychedelics, memory, emotion. And it's like, oh my God, it's in my stomach. It's this, what is that? And it becomes this memory, this belief system. And so then we're working on actually from the self energy, envisioning, going back, meeting that part of yourself, being with them, hearing them, feeling them, rescuing them in the long run, pulling them out of there, right? And so it's just incredibly powerful, beautiful work. And it's developed by this guy, Dick Schwartz. I can't even tell you how long ago he started doing this, but it is, it's being touted now by Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score. He's like, this is really the only therapy that works. It is very different than just straightforward talk therapy. It's very different than cognitive behavioral therapy. It's really not trying to fix yourself. It's noticing these parts that are frustrated, that are angry, that are whatever, and that those parts all have a purpose. They're all trying to make us safe. And that there's never any part that's bad. So we kind of correct that shame. We correct the wrong, it's like we move into rewriting our experience with compassion and love and connection.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's a great overview and explanation.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. I just want to pick up a thread before we lose it because I'm a listener this way. So earlier you mentioned something that a list you would tell us about later. It sounded like something like, oh, at birth, if these things aren't met, things.
Right.
Yeah.
This is so I call these universal imperatives.
That's it.
And they are just like the ises of the world. So like I'll say these and then just notice yourselves and for the audience here, like what happens for you? Maybe you even have a bodily reaction. Maybe you get chills, whatever it is. And so some might really resonate and some there might be, I wish there was more of that in my life, right? So, okay. Safety, love, connection, truth, integrity, wholeness, rightness, like that sense of like, yes, that's right, not I'm right, right? Beingness, belonging, worthiness, freedom, empowerment, and harmony. And like, this is like, everybody's like nodding their heads. Nobody's like, no, thank you. Actually, I'm not really interested in this.
No, I'll skip the worthiness.
Freedom's not for me. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And some of these can feel really yummy. And then there's also, with people that I'm working with, it's like, some of them, like they bring you to tears. It's like, well, I don't even know what worthiness is. But you're sad, right? The part of you that really is your true self is sad and knows that there's something right about worthiness, right? Even if there's like this longing, that's who you are, or a craving for something. Right? There's always some level of awareness of these things, right? And so I use these as in this practice that I call authentic alignment and really like physically embodying these pieces. So I'm happy to walk you guys through that if you want to play with another technique.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm open. I'm
Yeah.
game for anything.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're going to stand.
Amazing.
All right, so we're here.
Okay.
We're standing.
Okay, great. So remember, as we're starting, like you're not doing anything. This can feel a little challenging physically sometimes because it's different than how we usually stand. Okay. So I'm going to invite you to shift about 60% of your weight into your heels. So often it can feel off kilter, right? So often when we're literally ahead of ourselves. Yep. And actually, can you guys turn sideways for me and then I can cue you through some, yep.
Do you want us to face each other?
Whatever works for you guys, but yeah, that way I have a better, yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Weights in my heels.
Weights in our heels.
So just inviting yourself into your heels. And about 60% of your weight there and about 40% in the front of your foot. So like the ball of your big toe, imagine you're reaching that down. And so as you reach that down, you feel your foot start to get alive, right? Yeah. And so this is where you're plugging into your charging station. So being on your heels, I'm going to tell a story as we go through this. I'm coming home to myself. I'm worth staying with. I'm worth standing up for. Plugging your feet into your charging station. We're plugging into the universal imperatives. I'll say them again. Safety, love, connection, truth, integrity, wholeness, rightness, beingness, belonging, worthiness, freedom, empowerment, harmony, So plug into that whole rainbow or plug into whatever feels especially resonant for you, but you're drawing that energy up inside. As you come to your knees, if you tend to lock your knees, give them a little bit of an unlock. You're saying to yourself, I'm response able. I'm not stuck. I'm not locked. I'm not rigid. I'm flexible. I can go with the flow. Bring your attention to your pelvis and think about how you pull your tailbone under and your belly button up. So these two bones on the front of your hips face forward like a flashlight. So many of us have our pelvis tipped down and forward and our back overarched. So as we're doing that, you're thinking about, I'm creating stability in my body and in my life. You can start to feel with that how there's a little bit of like work in the core and usually in the lower core, and then invite that up. So like if that's an elevator that comes up, you want to bring it into your ribs. And Brittany, I'll just say that you're leaning back from your upper back. So if you bring, you're showing me this. So if you think about stacking yourself so that you are like not behind yourself, but yeah, do you feel how that's different?
Yeah.
Yeah, more connection into that the ribs right in the front there. So you've got this kind of like a zipper from the pelvis to the ribs. And this is where this is your essence. This is your solar plexus. It's like, I trust my gut. I'm listening to myself. I'm staying with myself. Or I want to trust my gut if that's not true for you. And then bringing your hands there to that space. Yeah. And this is where your essence, your gifts are, like how you want to show up in the world. And turn your hands palm up. Good. And then you're going to start to spin your arms out to the side, right? So palm up comes out to the side. And it's like, as you do that, you're spreading your wings and you feel your shoulder blades wrap back. At the same time, stay connected to the ribs, right? Stay connected to your essence, right? So you can feel that work in your back. Like, I've got my back. I want to fly from here. You can let your arms rest down by your side, but keep your palms facing forward in the sense of like presence and openness. Do you feel how that opens your heart? Like, I'm courageously vulnerable, right? If this is too intense, put your hand on your heart, bring your hand back to your body, but just notice that openness. You've got your own back. You can open your heart. This opens your throat where you can say to yourself, I'm going to say what I feel. I'm going to say what I need. I'm going to stand up and say what's right for me. And then you're tall from the top of your head, like I'm holding my head high for myself, for all of myselves. And from this place, my eyes, even if they're closed, are forward on the horizon, right? It gives me a wide perspective. And I trust myself rooted in the core of my being, that life will come to me. And it's from this place connected to myself, my essence, my truth, that I am going to choose the next right thing, the next right thing, the next right thing. That we're sourced and we're at home in ourselves. And this is the home of your belonging. This is the home of your being. And take and gather that and bring it back into yourself. So a hand on your heart and a hand on that kind of upper belly area, right? And if there's anything you want to say to yourself, right? Noticing here in the body, what feels different, what feels right. Maybe there's a sense of strength. Maybe there's a sense of connection. Notice emotionally how you feel here. In the mental space. And then finally, in the sense of like, yeah, in my essence, being connected to self. And again, I'll just let you hang out there as long as you wish, or else kind of unwind out of that. And let's just talk about how that was.
Yeah. Well. Oh, yeah. Whew. Yay. Great. Pause. Yay. Wow. How was it for you?
Incredibly grounding. Yeah, I feel, again, there's like just an added presence in my body that I didn't have before. And alignment,
Yes.
clarity.
Beautiful. Yeah, I call this authentic alignment. And that's, what you're describing there, Lisette, with the clarity. It's like we can be clear when our nervous system is in that gear one. That's where we have clarity, we have perspective, we have focus, we have, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, it was very beautiful. I loved as you were guiding us through and each part like opened as it built, it stacked. And so then the next one was like ready to be there. And it was interesting having us shift our weight into the like 60% into the heels. And like when you're like, a lot of times we're like ahead of ourselves. And I noticed I've had a tendency to have anxiety, which is fear of the future. And just noticing if all my energy is towards in the future, I'm not in the present, and feeling that in my body was just like a different experience of feeling that. Yeah, it was a really beautiful practice. Thank you so much.
welcome. You're welcome. And that's one of the ones that I think is the most powerful. And it's free, right? It's just like you have your body, right? You can just and we took a little bit of time with it, but once you get it down, it happens pretty quickly. And then like my clients, they're like we have these like micro breaks where you're just like, standing there and you're like, oh, on my heels,
Yeah.
right? That's just as soon as you zip back into that, it's like the whole thing connects.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a really beautiful practice. And when we talk about these Be Me breaks, there's like the ABCs of the Be Me break. And it, alignment or attunement, like we did with the butterfly, attachment, connection. The B is, what's the body language of what I'm doing? And the C is the checking in. So like circling back to that Be Me, like what's it like to be me now? Not just doing something and going on to the next thing. I think that's where we get lost, right? It's like, oh, I did the breathing and it didn't really change anything, or I did the whatever. Can have that full cycle of I'm choosing to be with myself. I'm actually doing the activity, right? Then we have like, I just finished the activity and it's like, now I'm going to plant what happened with that. And feels like a really important part to really notice how that's landing in all of the realms of our experience.
I feel like the overarching message is slow down, slow down. And so we can actually be present with what is going on. And for our listener who wrote in, who's feeling disconnected from their life and feeling like they're surrounded by all this energy of hustling, like the invitation being like, okay, so you're noticing you're not feeling connected. Can you slow down and see what else you're noticing and see what else is there? And asking yourself, what would it mean to be in alignment? Like, trying some of these exercises that you gifted, and feeling how that feels and just seeing what comes up from that space.
And I will just name that, like, it is not an uncommon thing to have people come into my studio and we do this work and I coach them through this alignment, tears, right? Like, this kind of sense of like, I haven't been home in myself. I want to be home in myself, right? And worth creating the environment, the safety, the time, right? So, and it will bring things up, right? Right? And that's kind of what happens when, like we talked a little bit the other day, Brittany, like when you choose to come into yourself, other things fall off.
Yes.
Relationships, jobs, right? It's like cleaning house, right? So it's like that we have to really, when we come into ourselves and trust that when we do that, when we're in our own authentic alignment, that is where we magnetize to ourselves who and what we need.
Yeah. Well, not to put you on the spot, but kind of. So, like, speaking of, would you be open to sharing any personal experience of allowing yourself to come into alignment and being in that shift of my external world is starting to change and shift because I'm choosing to live in my own alignment, and that moment while you're magnetizing what is in alignment?
Yeah. So yeah, I've had, a lot of experiences around like just knowing that I needed to close my practice in Eugene and move to Portland. Having like a sense of, at this point in time, I use this as a tool. I don't make decisions. I feel what's right.
Yeah.
So, but yes, in coming into this, it's like, relationships a lot of times that don't work, or at least being able to like say in ways like, this is really challenging for me. This is what I'm feeling and what I need, right? Whereas in the past, I might have just kind of like gone along, put my head down, done the thing, right? But I think that that's, moving here to Portland, kind of, choices in like, again, like relationship, that's been my biggest. And those are hard, right? Because if we think that safety is in the relationship that we're in or the job that we're in. And, I'll tell you a huge one is that 3 years ago, I closed my practice. Like I was a PT for all of these years, had a thriving business. And I'm like, I am not wholeheartedly feeling this. I'm not in full alignment with myself. I'm good at this, but my wholeness has a whole other piece, right? That I can't, shove this into a little bit of icing on the cake with the people that I'm working with. I need to like step out, lean out, and come into like, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. And, that's took like, upwards of 3 years, and I'm building my practice back, but it's like, that's a big thing to be like, I walked away from like a 9-month waiting list.
Wow.
This is where I'm at. And I couldn't feel happier about it. I love what I get to do. It feels like a gift. It really is trusting in that sense of alignment, gut, heart, and head on the same team.
Yeah, yeah. I thank you so much for sharing vulnerably from your own life, your experience, because I feel like I know it helps myself when you hear someone else's personal story of choosing themselves and life working out. Like you're alive, you're well, you have a practice, I met your cute dog, like, and I share this story with you when Lisette and I in the pandemic sold all our stuff and decided to live out of her truck and go on the road with no plan, and people were like, that sounds batshit. And we were like, yeah, but like something about it is feeling more right than staying with where I am. And so I don't know what's on the other side, but I know it's no longer this. And so having that courage to move towards what's in alignment. And I'm always a big fan of like, wherever I'm going, it's going to be better.
Yeah.
Wherever I'm going, it's going to be better. And so, trusting and believing that I'm only moving towards what's better for me. And I love that you brought in that word of like wholeness. Like I'm good at this thing, but I'm not feeling whole, And so allowing ourselves, like she said, I have the job and the relationship and the things, and it's like, that's fine. And it's fine. But if you're not feeling whole, what else could there be for you?
Right. Yeah. And just what you're saying, like that idea of like, when we're in alignment, right? I call that practice authentic alignment. And we're literally in a place of being, we're surfing the edge of the unfolding, right? It's trusting in the unknown and recognize we really don't have a lot of control anyway, right? But that's where, but to be in that place of being like, I trust myself moment to moment to make the next right decision.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think what really struck me, and I love it, is that you said you don't make decisions, you feel what's right. Is that how you, I was just like, yes. Okay, goals.
Yeah.
Because you can decide and logic your way into staying small. You can logic your way staying in that relationship, but to feel the truth and follow it, that's a gift.
I've gone wrong in doing that, right? It's when I've questioned it that I have not, it hasn't worked out in the right way.
Yeah. Been there. This is the quote unquote smart on paper thing to do. Miserable. Like looking for the exits, not happy.
I have a question for you, because we get it a lot, and it's like you talk about the heart, the mind, heart, and gut being connected. When I have clients and people ask me, how do you know the difference between like, I feel like I have a gut hit or it's actually anxiety? And it's when do you know the alignment versus like, oh, I got a bad feeling about this, but maybe it's anxiety per se.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would go back to that sense of that internal family systems type of framework where it's like, what's happening? Like, is it anxiety? Who's anxious? About what? Is that actually true? Like, so in this place of like, from this place of witnessing, being like, is it true? Do I need to be anxious about that? Okay, I'm listening to you. I'm hearing that. Is it, like, do we need to exit? Do we need to stay? Do we need to, like from this whatever 5-year-old perspective, right? But feeling heard in that and being like, actually, when I sense into myself, when I get into this alignment, and this is a game changer, I promise you, to practice this authentic alignment, really feeling like rooted in and sensing in those universal imperatives, like safety is ringing for me today. Worthiness is ringing for me today. That's how you sense into like, that's what's landing authentically. And the anxiety is often kind of the opposite of one of those imperatives that isn't being met.
Thank you. That's actually very clear.
Oh, this is such a great conversation. I just want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your wealth of knowledge with our community and like practices that one can take home. Like, what a gift. If someone, our listener or others, want to reach you, want to find out more about what you do, how can they find you?
I have a website. I'm here in Portland, and I work one-on-one and also online. You can find me at becomebodywiseconsulting.com. And on there, there's all kinds of things about the Be Me break and how you can develop that. The framework is there. There's a free authentic alignment guided practice. You can learn about one-to-one coaching. I have an online course. I do some speaking and some retreats. So you can find out all the ways to find me on that website. And I'm also on social. You can find the links on the website too.
Fantastic. We will definitely make sure to have those in the show notes. And yeah, if there was any overarching message or anything you would want someone, if there was one nugget you wanted someone to take from this conversation, what would that be?
That you're worth being with. Yeah. That's like, this is like to really come home to yourself and, become all of who you are. I love that word become because it starts with be and it ends with me, right? It's like we've always been there. And so that I think that knowing that it is not only possible, it's actually quite powerful and fairly easy to be able to tap into these, what we're seeing in science is proof of like, oh, this is how I come home to myself. So to believe that it's possible, to know that you're worth it and show up for yourself, I promise it works.
Gosh, that's so good. I learned so much from you today. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, this is incredible. And I already can think of so many people I would send in your direction because the embodiment work is so powerful. So thank you for doing the Lord's work.
Really fun. I love the conversation, and it was really fun to like guide you guys through and just to be able to witness and support you in that. And it's
Fantastic. Oh, so good. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
I am blown away by Megan.
I told you.
You did. You're like, we got to have her on here. Well, first of all, there's so much I didn't know about somatics and nervous system regulation, what she taught us about IFS. Like, I love learning. You know this about me. Have you guys heard that I love learning?
Do you guys know Lisette loves learning?
I love learning. And this one was chock full of learning and exercises. Like, we can actually apply this in our lives. I'm so excited.
I am so excited. And I feel so grateful that this caller trusted us with their question and with what's going on in their life. Because I have been in that experience where you're like, well, nothing's working right. So like, maybe I'll try talk therapy, or someone said this about MDMA, or like, maybe I should try this diet. Keto helps. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like having...
Have you had enough protein?
Yeah. Have you had enough protein? Yes, but having this kind of body of work, and I'm all about the embodiment practices. But when we get our body online and we actually start to understand and work with our body,
Yes.
that is where we can really create this lasting change. And so I feel so grateful that she taught us. I mean, try these techniques out. If you weren't doing them with us in real time, like save this episode and come back to it and try these exercises out. They really are something.
Yeah, I'm feeling that alignment. And, what she said about the decision.
Oh, yes.
The decision quote.
That she doesn't make decisions. She feels into what's right.
She feels into what's right.
Yeah.
I'm just like, God, yes. I'm scanning it, putting in my neurology.
Yes.
Living that life right now.
Yes.
Yeah, she is just incredible. So happy to have her on.
Absolutely. And if you want to find more about her, her links are in the show notes. You know where it is. Well, it's a great time to subscribe, to tell a friend. And if you have a question, send us a text like these people do, or slide into the DMs, 971-895-4111. We are here. We are available. We are giving of service. And as you can see, we have an amazing wealth of community who has so much information, so much wisdom. So we are always happy to phone a friend and bring on the best of the best to support you with whatever it is that you are moving through.
Yeah. And until we meet again, be honest with each other.
Bye.